He ruled over 60 million souls, commanded legions that shook the earth beneath their sandals, and sat upon the most powerful throne the ancient world had ever seen. And every single night, alone in a freezing tent on the edge of a collapsing empire, he wrote words that no one was ever supposed to read. Words like this: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man alive, who spent his entire life learning how to be no one at all. He was born into wealth in the year 121. By 16, the Emperor Hadrian had already called him a man of promise. By 40, he carried the weight of Rome on 2 exhausted shoulders. But here is what no history book tells you with enough force. Marcus Aurelius never wanted to be emperor. He wanted to be a philosopher. He wanted cold mornings, simple bread, hard questions, and the quiet company of great books.
Caesar,
Instead,
Imperator!
fate handed him plague, war,
Hail the
betrayal,
son of Mars!
and an empire rotting from the inside out. And he accepted every single ounce of it without flinching. You want to talk about pressure? You are reading this in a warm room, perhaps slightly stressed about an email you forgot to send.
not yourself.
Marcus Aurelius was managing the Antonine Plague that killed 5 million people, fighting the Marcomanni barbarians across the frozen Danube, watching his closest generals die in the mud, and still waking up before dawn to write in his journal. Not to complain,
Are we
to
all
correct
agreed?
himself.
Yes, 23
That
voices
distinction
against
matters
him.
more than
For the
anything else in
glory
the
of
story.
Rome!
The Meditations were never a diary of victories. They were a record of failures, doubts, and the relentless effort to become better by sundown than he had been at sunrise.
He has grown
He
too
wrote things like,
powerful!
"Confine
The Senate
yourself
must
to the
act
present,"
now,
and
before he
"Do not
returns."
indulge in
Are you
dreams of what you
suggesting
have
assassination?
not." These were not motivational lines polished for an audience. They were commands, written by a man to himself in the dark, because he knew he was slipping. He was fighting the oldest enemy a powerful man faces: himself. His reign began in 161,
will be
and
there.
almost immediately the
He
world
will
tested him.
be
A flood devastated Rome. Famine followed. Then came the plague, carried back by soldiers from a campaign in the east, spreading through the empire like fire through dry wheat. Thousands died daily. The streets of Rome filled with the smell of burning bodies. Citizens fled. Temples overflowed with desperate prayers.
Do
And
not
Marcus
go, Caesar.
did not flee.
Please, I
He
implore you,
organized
stay
relief
here.
efforts. He sold
The
imperial
omens are
treasures
against
to fund
you.
the response. He stood in the open air of a suffering city and refused to perform the panic that everyone around him was performing. That is Stoicism in action, not a theory, a body that stays still when every nerve screams to run. But the external battles were almost secondary to
Great
what was happening
Caesar
inside him.
cannot let
His
nightmares
co-emperor and
rule
adopted
Rome.
brother, Lucius Verus, died in 169. His wife, Faustina, whom historians have judged harshly though Marcus defended fiercely, died in 175. His son Commodus grew into a man who would eventually
Did you
tear
hear what
down
Cicero said
everything
yesterday?
Marcus
He
had
goes
built.
too far.
He watched
Caesar
this
will not
happen.
tolerate this
He saw
insolence.
the
We must
fractures
take our
forming,
positions before
and
the
he
assembly
did not
begins.
look away. He simply wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Read that again. What stands in the way becomes the way. Not despite the obstacle, but through it, because of it.
The obstacle itself is the path. This was not philosophy as decoration. This was a man converting grief into fuel in real time on a battlefield in the rain. While you and I might crumble under one significant loss, Marcus was absorbing losses in clusters, systematically over 2 decades, and responding each time not with collapse, but with deeper discipline. He spent the last decade of his life almost entirely on military campaigns in Germania, sleeping on soldiers' rations, wearing armor heavier than most men could lift, crossing rivers in winter. He was not a young warrior built for this. He was a scholar. He had bad health. He suffered from chronic chest pain and possibly stomach ailments that made sleep difficult. Yet he stayed. He said, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." This is the turning point that most people miss about Marcus Aurelius. His greatness was not in what he achieved, it was in what he refused to become. He refused to become cruel, though cruelty was available to him daily. He refused to become lazy, though luxury surrounded him completely. He refused to become bitter, though life handed him betrayal in elegant Roman packaging. He had every reason to break. He chose not to. He chose the harder thing every single morning, one morning at a time. And this is where the story presses against your chest and does not let go. Because Marcus Aurelius died in 180 on campaign in a military tent, likely near modern-day Vienna. Not in a palace, not surrounded by marble and gold. He died in the cold, the way he had lived, stripped of comfort, still in service. His last recorded words to his guards were, "Go to the rising sun, for I am already setting." He was 58 years old. He had spent nearly 2 decades at war. He had never once stopped writing. And the journal he left behind, the Meditations, a private collection of raw self-correction, has now survived nearly 2,000 years and sits on the nightstand of presidents, generals, athletes, and people who simply want to wake up tomorrow slightly better than they were today. Here is what Marcus Aurelius teaches, not through lectures, but through the sheer weight of how he lived. Discipline is not punishment. It is the one freedom no one can take from you. Your mind is a battlefield before any general ever draws a sword. And the most important war you will ever fight is the quiet one that happens before the world wakes up. He had every excuse to surrender to comfort. He had every excuse to be consumed by power. He had every excuse to stop fighting. So the question he leaves you with, pressing it gently but firmly into your ribs, is this. If the most powerful man on earth spent every single day fighting to be better and still considered himself unfinished, what is your excuse for standing still?